What's up, everyone? Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Chris. So let's go over the books I read for the month of June. Now, last month was crazy. I had 15 books. This month, I got 12. I didn't expect to read that many, especially because out of that 12, 2 of them are actual physical books. So I did pretty darn good. And I actually had 2 5-star reads this month. And so I'm really excited about that. Everything else was, kind of middle of the road, but overall, it was a great month and I'm happy with it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the first book. All right, so June is off to a so-so start. The first book I chose to read this month is Recursion by Blake Crouch. Now, this isn't the first book I've read by Blake Crouch. I also read Dark Matter. And these 2 books actually are kind of similar. So it follows, there's 2 storylines. Barry, he's a New York police detective, and he is trying to work on why these people are starting to come down with this syndrome called FMS, or false memory syndrome, where people start having memories of a life other than what they're currently living. It's causing people to I can't use the S word, causes them to commit self-harm and to end their despair. A lot of them become anxious, crazy, neurotic. It's just, imagine waking up one day and you're like, your whole life that you thought you had was gone. And you have memories of it, but it doesn't exist. So, and the other storyline is Helene, who is a neuroscientist, and she is working on a chair that can restore memory. And she started this because her mother is suffering from Alzheimer's and she wants to preserve the memories. She wants to help her mother, to save her. Well, when you start dealing with things like, crazy stuff like that, bad things happen and bad people get involved. So basically what happens is, with this chair, people are able to travel back in time to a particular memory that they're holding on to. And then when their life catches up to that point in time, the memories start to converge into one, and this is where this false memory syndrome takes place. Now, it's a bit science fiction and time travel. So, for me, this book was hard to follow. And I did give it my full attention, because if you don't, you're going to get lost. You have to give this book your full attention and time. There's a lot of jumping back in time to try to make changes and fix things and get this chair where it's not in the hands of the wrong people. For me, it got a little repetitive, in a sense that you gotta keep going back, and these people are reliving their lives over and over and over, Blake and Helene, because they have actually met, came to a meeting place within the story. I'm having a hard time even describing the book. I mean, the premise of the book is, how what we do in our lives affects the outcome in humanity itself, and you have to let time play out. You can't fool around with the past and expect something to change for the better in the future, because it's, there's a ripple effect there. It was an okay book. I'm giving it 3 stars, but overall, it was a mind bender. It really was, that just following along with the story. It wasn't a bad book. It was just, for me, it was just too much. It just made my brain hurt. And even though I enjoy a good time travel story, this one just had my brain just fried. And when I read a book, I want to enjoy it. I want to savor it and, be in the place. And this was just, for me, it was a little chaotic. So yeah, I'm giving it 3 stars. You know what? It's late. 3 stars, Recursion by Blake Crouch. Let me know if you've read it, what you've thought about it, and if it sounds like something you might pick up, or if it's on your list already to kind of pick up and read. All right, so let's move along now. All right, so continuing on with my Stephen King, one book by Stephen King a month, I chose to read Finders Keepers, which is the second book in the Bill Hodges trilogy. It was good. I feel like this book was kind of like a filler to the trilogy, if that makes any sense. I say that because there's still a tie-in from Mr. Mercedes with the first book. So the book starts out, it's like 1978, and this man, why am I forgetting his name? Because I didn't like his name. His name just didn't fit. I think it was Morrison Bellamy, or Morris Bellamy. He's a little nuts. Like he's a thug. He's just a degenerate piece of crap. And he's a young guy, right, in 78. He's like in his mid 20s, I think. And him and a couple of his thug friends break into an author's house. Now, this is heavily set on this author as well. The author is, oh my God, Rothstein is the last name. Big famous author. He's like 80 years old now. He's elderly. And Morris he's got a bone to pick with this author, because he doesn't like how this author kind of changed a character that in one of his books, this Jimmy character, and he's really pissed off about it. This is kind of like Misery vibes, right? Again, the author, readers mad, fan. However, it's not the same story. But so him and his thug friends break into the author's house in the middle of the night and ends up killing him. And he steals money and books, that the notebooks that the author was continuing to write this, character. Now, they leave, and Morris ends up offing his friend, and he brutally rapes this woman, and he ends up going to jail. Okay, but before he goes to jail, he takes these books, these notebooks, in the money, and he wraps it all up and he buries it. Now, flash forward, we're going to Tom and Linda, their 2 kids, Pete and Tina. And they're struggling bad, really, really bad financially. It's a recession. I think it was like 2000, what was it, 16 when we had that recession here? Because, he's always got to bring a little bit of something political in, right? But anyway, Thomas, the father, was at the job fair that Mr. Mercedes from the first book ran through with the car and killed and injured a ton of people. So now father's busted up pretty bad. Now he can't work at all because he's just a hot mess, and good thing he didn't get killed, like some of the other people. So Mr. Mercedes' story is still here. It's living on. And anyway, Pete stumbles upon this buried treasure, and the story unfolds from there. The thief is in jail, so he might get out, right, and come looking. And so what Pete does is he starts taking this money because he's trying to help his family. So every month he takes $500 and he puts it in the mail, like anonymous. And as usual, we have Holly and Bill Hodges. Now, they have since opened up a private detective agency called Finders Keepers, hence the name of the book. However, they didn't come into the story until quite a ways into the book. It was, probably like the halfway mark, because I'm listening for a long time. I'm like, wow, where's Holly and Bill? But whatever, they do end up coming into the story, and it kind of converges. And then we've got Barbara and Jerome from the original book. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed the story. It was good. Kooky characters. I love the way Stephen King, names people. He gives them funny names, like, Bill Hodges carries his homemade weapon around. He calls it his happy slapper. It's a sock with ball bearings in it. I like the way he writes just real people. And anyway, I'm giving the book 4 stars. Overall, it was a good story. Little slow. And then the end of the book was just like bam, 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 bam. Like everything was coming out in full force, fast, and whatever. But yeah, I enjoyed it, but I did feel like it was like a filler, because now the third book, End of Watch, is the final book in this trilogy. So I'm thinking this middle book, to me, it felt a little bit like a filler. So anyway, Finders Keepers, Stephen King, and yeah, I'm gonna probably do the last book next month. I'm thinking I don't want to leave it. I want to tie it all in. So anyway, that's that, and we're gonna go ahead and talk about the next book that I read. Moving on to this next book, Lovely War by Julie Berry. This is a historical romance novel, and the backdrop is World War I, with a little glimpse into World War II. And we're following 2 couples, Hazel and James, and Aubrey and Colette. Hazel is a British pianist. James is a young, shy soldier. And they happen to fall in love just days before he gets sent off to the front. Then Aubrey is a Black American jazz musician, and he plays in a U.S. military jazz band. And Colette is a Belgian singer. Now, Colette is already full of sorrow in her life, as well as what's going on in the current times, because she has lost her entire family with the exception of her aunt. Now, the 2 girls do cross paths, and they become fast friends. And so through the experience, they share their experiences with what's going on with the men they love, not always hearing from them, the worry that they may have, been injured, all the things that go on with that. Now, that being said, The book also touches on racial tensions because Aubrey is a black man and Colette being a Caucasian woman. So there's a lot of tension going on there with outsiders. So that's touched upon in the book. What I really liked about the book was it's narrated by Greek gods. So we've got the goddess of love, Aphrodite, the god of war, Ares, the god of the underworld or death, Hades, and Apollo, the god of music and poetry and art. So now, how much could I really say about the book? There's really not much of a plot here. It's just it's a love story. It's being played out for us by the Greek gods, and sometimes they dabble in the lives to make things go a certain way. So it made it that was kind of interesting. It was a nice twist on the story. I struggled with the book because I just really didn't relate to the characters very much. But that being said, it was beautifully written. The struggles that they were going through, being separated, and the heartache, the loss along the way of just people around them, everything that war brings, right? But overall, it was a beautiful blend of romance and history and mythology. It was emotional, but it wasn't overly done. I loved how music and love offered hope to these people in times of, despair and darkness. And the gods narrating the story really just kind of, it made the book. If it was told in a different way, I'm not sure it would have really hit home. But like I said, it kind of fell flat for me in the sense that I just couldn't relate to the love stories between these four individuals. Overall, I'm going to give it 3 stars because I thought it was a unique take on a way to write a love story. So I'm going with, did I say 4 stars? No, I'm going with 3 stars because it was beautifully written, and I did like that little twist with the gods and goddesses, Greek mythology aspect of it. I thought that was clever. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move along to the next book. All right, let's talk a little bit about the horror genre. Now, this is something that I normally wouldn't read, and I decided, at the beginning of the year, one of the things I want to read this year is something in the horror category. Now, I've read Pet Sematary by Stephen King. That didn't scare me. Not that I want to be scared, but I guess I'm pushing my limits in my boundaries. So Pet Sematary did not scare me. And then I read The Troop by Nick Cutter. Didn't scare me. It was just gross. That was more like body horror. So yeah, I didn't find it scary at all. And last month I had that DNF that I did was Mary, what was it called? The Evil Awakening or something. I can't remember, but it's Mary, and by Nat Cassidy. And I DNF'd it because I was just like, this is just, it wasn't for me. So I thought, all right, I'm going to try again. And Nat Cassidy came up on my feed. I don't know if I think it must have been Audible, because, was it Audible? I think so, because I think it's a newer book. And that's When the Wolf Comes Home. Okay. read the synopsis. I read a few reviews. I didn't read through the reviews. I just read like their captions. You know how you put a title on your review? All right, maybe this one will be scary. You guys, I think it's me. I think it's me. Now, I'm the one who cannot watch a scary movie because it will, what I see on the screen will haunt me for decades. I could still remember movies that I saw when I was very, very young, and it still scares the crap out of me. Anyway, so this book here, When the Wolf Comes Home. I did not DNF this one. However, there were many times I was close, and I thought, well, maybe I just got to keep moving through it. And as I was listening, there were parts that I was like, okay, this is pretty, this is interesting. So basically, the story is following Cassie. Where did I get Cassie from? What the hell? Jessa is her name. And Jessa she's trying to become a improv and just make it to be famous, whether she's doing improv or movies and whatever. It's comedy, and at least that's what I got from it. And, you know, she's working menial jobs and stuff like that. And so one night after work, she goes home and she hears something outside, like, you know, what is that? And, you know, sound like a wounded animal or something, like, you know, a baby animal. And come to find out it was a kid, a little boy. And he was crying and, you know, scared and yada yada. And she took him in to her apartment, and that's where all hell starts to break loose. So the father comes looking for him. So they're in the apartment, and she hears her neighbors outside talking to some guy, and she looks out the window, and the guy is standing there, and he's butt naked. And that's really when all hell breaks loose. And I mean, I guess I'm really not giving you a spoiler. I mean, yeah, he turns into this monster, like a werewolf type monster, you know. Not even. It's like a monster. Starts killing people. She escapes with the little boy. From here on out, they're on the run, trying to escape this creature. I thought it was silly. I did. The dialogue. I don't know if it was meant to be like that, kind of like, what kind of humor is that? Spoofy, you know, like, you know, I'm thinking to myself, lady, you got this monster chasing you, and I struggled with that. I really did. I didn't get when I visualize a horror book, I think of like, is this book going to create this spooky atmosphere and just feelings of foreboding and all the things, right? I guess I just want to see, can I be scared by a book like I am scared by stuff on TV that I don't watch? And yeah, this didn't do it for me. I listened to it, and, you know, if you read some of the captions, oh, you won't go to bed at night. I slept just fine. So, I don't know. Like I said, I'm trying to like not be judgy because I didn't like it. So what I am going to say is I thought it was written very well. The characters he seems to write kooky characters. There was a good plot in there about, you know, the story of this boy. And Jessa has her own story as well. She's suffering. She's going through a lot of grief right now because her father abandoned them and she hadn't seen him, and now the father passed away. And so she had a storyline. It was well written. I am not the right person to say whether, oh, this was a fantastic story or this was a really bad, because this isn't the genre that I normally read. All right. All my life, I have always read mystery, thriller, suspense in just like contemporary fiction books, well, character-driven books, for as long as I can remember. So yeah, I'm gonna say, just from a reader's standpoint, I thought it was well written, and I thought the storyline was different and unique. So yeah, but for myself, I'm still giving it 2 stars because it just wasn't for me. So I don't know, has anybody read this book yet? What did you think? And for myself, I always said there was one book that I will never ever read, and I'm wondering if maybe I should. And that would be Salem's Lot by Stephen King. The problem is I am petrified of vampires. So, but, I'm trying to, I don't know, why am I doing that to myself? Like, you talk about being, like, self-destructive. I mean, why am I doing that? I don't know. And I guess, like I said, as far as the horror goes, I read Pet Sematary. I loved it. Thought it was a fantastic book. I didn't find it scary. I guess the concept of that whole book was scary, yes. Just like the concept of this book was scary, but Pet Sematary wasn't silly and stupid. I thought this was silly and stupid, really. But I think maybe that's the way the writer writes. Maybe it is supposed to be silly, and, I don't know. I haven't read enough of his books. Like I said, that first one I did read, I DNF'd it. So, anyway, When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. Those are my thoughts, and I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have read it and your thoughts on horror in general. All right, so let's go ahead and move along now. All right, moving back into my thriller groove. This next book is called Creep by Jennifer Hillier. Now, I've really started to take a liking to Jennifer Hillier's writing. I've read Jar of Hearts and Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier, and I enjoyed both very much. So I moved on to this book, Creep. Now, Creep is the first book in a series of 3 thus far. I don't know if there'll be any more. But the third book, it's my understanding, can be read as a standalone. It doesn't follow the first 2 very much, though I think things are mentioned from the first 2, but you don't have to read them. Anyway, in Creep, we are following Sheila Tao. She is a psychology professor at a university. Now, Sheila is 39 years old. She is Chinese descent, and she's also a sex addict. Now, she is having an affair with one of her students, and his name is Ethan. And they've been having an affair for about 3 months, and she decides to break it off because she is now engaged to her boyfriend, Morris. Well, Ethan doesn't take very kindly to this, and he also doesn't know she's a sex addict, but he finds out. So he starts kind of blackmailing her, saying he's going to release a video that they did together, yada yada. And she's nervous about it. She's worried about her career. She's worried about her fiance finding out. And ultimately, she just ends up telling her fiance. So things don't go well there. And in the meantime, she goes missing. And that's where Ethan comes in the story really starts to unfold. And so on this hunt to find Sheila. Is she dead? Is she alive? Where is she? What's the matter? Morris is devastated, and he hires a private investigator, the whole business. And it's a good book. And it ends on a cliffhanger, somewhat, which will carry into the next book, is called A Freak, carries over into that book. Good book. I enjoyed it. It is an older book. It's written in, I want to say it was 2013. And I'm not sure if this was Jennifer Hillier's first book published or not. I found the writing, the writing was fine. It was some of the some of the dialogue, like Ethan's dialogue was a little bit kind of like, it was a little odd. It was a little juvenile. And yes, he is only 23 years old, but still. It turned from, I didn't even realize he was that young. And then all of a sudden, there's things he would say, and it wasn't fitting. It didn't fit. So there was a little bit of, the dialogue, I think, was suffering in this book a little bit. Maybe that was just my impression or the way I was hearing it. Yeah, I enjoyed the book very much. I'm giving the book 3.5 stars. It was a page turner. There were points in the book where it did get a little slow and monotonous. It was kind of like, okay, I get it. Let's keep moving forward here. But overall, I did enjoy the book very much. So much so I've already started the second book. And yeah, so let me know if you've read it. Have you read anything by Jennifer Hillier? I'm really enjoying her stuff. So I'm looking forward to reading the next 2 books in this series. And I am going to read them back to back. When I finish Freak, I'm going to go on and finish the series off with The Butcher. Anyway, so that's what I've got for this book here. And let's carry on and move along. And here's my thoughts on Freak. All right, so I said I was going to continue on with this Jennifer Hillier series. You just got my review of Creep. Now let's talk about Freak. Yeah. Now, Creep was Jennifer Hillier's first book, followed by Freak, and then The Butcher. Now, the whole reason I got involved in this series is because I want to read The Butcher. So, and I have a feeling that I didn't need to read these 2 first books to read The Butcher, but I wanted to do it anyway just in case. So, Freak. Now, being that this kind of is a continuation of Creep, there's not too much I could say. So, not that there's not too much I could say. I don't want to give any spoilers away because Creep did kind of end on a little bit of a cliffhanger. Not a huge one. It just left you knowing there's another book coming. So in our first book, we've got Sheila and Morris and Ethan. These characters all carry over into the next book. Sheila Tao, she's a professor at Puget Sound University up in Washington State near Seattle. And she is back to teaching, but, still struggling from everything that happened prior, and her and Morris are kind of smoothing things out. But, she's not out of danger yet. And so that's where this book carries on. I'm not going to talk too much about the book because I don't want to give anything away in this book. I don't want to give anything away by saying something here that would spoil the first book. So what I am going to say is I'm giving the book 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. It was entertaining to listen to and, follow along with the story. again, the dialogue. I had issues with the dialogue. Now, the police procedural stuff in here I thought was a little bit corny. I'm like, okay, this would never happen. This is not the way a case like this would be handled. It was a stretch. I'm trying to get the right words here. Dialogue. It's just the corny things that they say, and and Sheila. You know what? I don't care for her at all. She was just kind of like blah. She's very blah. And I should have said that in the first book too. She's blah. And Morris is kind of like a big oof to me. Like, he's an investment banker, but the characters weren't well written to me. And like I said, some of the things that they're saying, when they're in these crisis modes, right? I mean, some of the things that are going on here, you guys would be shitting your pants. And the things that are coming out of her mouth, it's like, oh, come on. So I didn't like that. There's a little bit of a dialogue issue here. However, the concept is very good. I liked that about the book, about the story. I liked the concept behind it, how it's, things were transpiring and unfolding. I just don't think the people were very great. But I liked the whole idea behind the book. If that makes sense. All right. So like I said, I'm going to go with 3.5 stars. I will be continuing on with The Butcher next. I'm going to wrap that series up. Well, unless she comes out with another one. So, in our next frame here, you will hear me discussing The Butcher, which is the 3rd book in here. So I'm hoping The Butcher is a little bit better. It did get really good reviews and stuff, so we'll see. Fingers crossed. And then after that, I got another book planned in my mind that I'm going to read. It's a long one, so I am going to be on a road trip, so I'm figuring I can get a good chunk of that book out of the way. Anyway, so Freak, Jennifer Hillier, 3.5 stars. It was okay. It was okay. It was entertaining, and that's about all I'm going to say about that. So we're going to roll into the next frame and talk about The Butcher. All right, so we're going to move along to a few books in this little segment here. First being The Butcher by Jennifer Hillier. This is the 3rd book in her serial killer series. It was Creep, Freak, and then The Butcher. Now, as you know, Creep and Freak were just okay for me. I think they were her earlier writings. And now we come to The Butcher. You do not need to read Creep or Freak to read The Butcher. It's not a, there's very small references to the characters in the first 2 books, but they're not relevant to the story at all. So if you just want to move right ahead and read The Butcher, go right ahead. It's perfectly, it's a standalone. All right. So I'm torn on this one because this one got a lot of hype. I gotta stop listening to what people are hyping up. It was okay. So we've got Matt. Matt is the grandson of Chief Edward Shank, who is a retired police officer, most famous for gunning down in 1985 the Beacon Hill Butcher. It was a serial killer back in the 80s. So first off, I'm having a hard time talking about this book because everything is given away right in the beginning of the book. So I don't want to say it, just, I don't know, because I just still feel like I'm giving something away. Anyway, I'm going to try not to give any of that away, even though, like I said, it's not a secret. Matt inherits his grandfather's house. Well, his grandfather's still alive, but he's gone off to live in like a retirement home and gives the house to his grandson, Matt. His grandson, Matt, was raised by his grandparents because his mother died when he was, oh God, an infant. She died. And there's also Matt's girlfriend, Samantha, whose mother was murdered after the Beacon Hill butcher was killed. So Samantha is become a crime investigator, writer, and she is convinced that the butcher was not, the one that was killed was not the butcher, because her mother's death was very much similar to the victims of the butcher. So that's part of the story. So Matt moves into the house and he unearths some family secrets. So he becomes torn, with exposing his family and what he knows. And the grandfather is, just not a nice man, the chief. And I'm not going to say much more than that. You could probably already figure it out, what I've told you already. Again, there weren't any really secrets or twists in this book. There was a small one, a small reveal twist toward the end of the book, but I had already actually kind of figured that much out. So I was disappointed in the book. It wasn't very twisty. Yeah, I'm going to give it 3 stars. I mean, I listened to it, but I really didn't have a right reason. I mean, I didn't have a choice to DNF it, because I actually listened to this on my drive, because I just came back. I listened to this on my drive down to Virginia. So, when you're on the thruway, you're driving 80 miles an hour, you can't pick up your phone and choose a different book, right? So I did. I listened to the whole thing. It was fine. It kept me entertained while I was driving and, whatnot. And you know what, guys? Let me tell you something. That is the best place to listen to a book. When you're all alone in the car and you're just driving along and you become more immersed in it, I think. It's fantastic. So next time you're on a long car drive, pop yourself a book in. Anyway, it kept me entertained. The characters weren't exciting. They weren't people that I liked, that I had any emotional feeling for, or, yeah, they were just kind of flat. I felt like this book was rushed. I don't know. And like I said, as far as plot goes, I didn't really find that there was much of a plot here. And again, everything's revealed in the beginning of the story. And I don't like that. Yeah. I like to be surprised. I like to go, oh my God. I didn't see that coming. You see this coming a mile away. So anyway, that's The Butcher by Jennifer Hillier. It was okay. I'm going to give it 3 stars just for entertainment value. It was kind of like, a popcorn thriller. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so the next book. This was a good book. This is a 5-star read. Martha from Martha's Fragrance Corner. If you're watching, I think you will really enjoy this book as well. That book is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. Good book, you guys. All right, 5-star read. First of all, the writing itself, the prose, the words, beautifully written. Look, I got goosebumps right now. It was beautifully written. It is a bit of a slow burn. It's not a super fast-paced book. It is a 20-hour book. Oh, okay. I'm just thinking back to, like, because I just finished it on my drive home yesterday. Anyway, okay. See, I can't even talk about it because I'm just so touched by this book. The book is about, we're following Robbie Stevens. He's a 12-year-old black boy. And this takes place in 1950 during the Jim Crow era down in the South in Florida. It's a fictional town. Gracetown is where Robbie is from. And one day, Robbie and his sister are out and about, and they come across a friend, you know, Lyle McCormick. Lyle McCormick is a white boy. His father owns like half the properties down in Florida. So they're very like in Gracetown. So they're very influential people. Well, Lyle makes some remarks and advances towards Gloria, Robbie's sister, and gets a little heated. Lyle pushes Robbie and Robbie kicks Lyle. Well, this turned into a nightmare. Really, a nightmare. He was sentenced by a judge to go to the Gracetown school for boys. It is a segregated school, and we call it the Reformatory. So it's like a reform school. And Warden Haddock is the head of this school. Horrifying things go on at this school. And basically, the author kind of modeled this story after a real-life school down in Florida called the Dozier School for Boys, where bad things happened, people died, mistreatment, all the things. So bad things happened at this school. Some 30 years prior, a group of like, I don't think it was, I want to say it was 7 boys were burned to death in a building that was set fire purposely. And this school is haunted, they call them haints. And Robbie is able to see these haints, ghosts. And so Robbie becomes a ghost hunter because, so there's a little supernatural here too. It's not, obviously we don't hunt ghosts and capture, he hunts ghosts for one of the officers, Boone, and he's a mean man. He's a mean black man, treats these kids like crap. But Robbie's getting a little bit special treatment, just a little bit, not a lot, because bad things happen to Robbie. To capture these ghosts, because he's able to see them. So I don't want to get too much into that story, because I don't want to tell you the whole book. Robbie sees ghosts. He's made a friend, Redbone. So yeah, there's that piece of it. Then there's Gloria. Gloria is beside herself about Robbie being sentenced for 6 months to this reformatory, because she's heard of things that go on there, boys who have died, gone missing. So, and Gloria kind of like Robbie's mother, because their mom died of cancer a few years earlier, and Gloria sets out to try to find help to get him out of there. And Gloria turns to Annie, she works for Annie. She's a white woman, but Her father died trying to help black people. And Annie, in turn, is trying to do the same. And she's trying to help Gloria free Robbie. So there's that little piece of it there. The book was so beautifully written. You actually saw and felt what the African American community went through back during that Jim Crow era, the segregation. There's a scene in the book where Gloria is in the car with her godmother Lottie, who she kind of steps in, and she's an elderly woman. She's like 80 years old. And, I got to get to Robbie's father, too. You know, what it's like to be in a car, and you see the sheriff on the road parked up ahead, and she writes about watching the speed limit, like watching her aunt, I think they call her auntie, Aunt Lottie. I think they do, even though it's not an aunt, it's her godmother. Watching the speedometer, in her head, her heart's pounding, and, what if they get pulled over, and just making sure she stays at perfectly 25 miles an hour because they don't want to get pulled over. All the things, so many things. And the horrors that go on in the Reformatory are talked about, the beatings. The book is classified as a horror novel, and I guess in essence it is. It's horrifying, how just the treatment. Robbie's father. This is also part of the reason Robbie's in the Reformatory too, for kicking Lyle. There's a lot to this book. It's definitely a slow burn because there's lots of story pieces that are being told along the way. And Robbie's father is Robert Stevens, and he's off in Chicago because he was accused of raping a white woman. Now, a lot of people don't believe that, and they know it's not true because the white woman that he supposedly raped is actually beaten by her husband all the time. And when that came out, to cover it up, she said she was raped and Robert Stevens was the rapist. So he has fled the area, and he's off living in Chicago because he's also like an activist. So he's speaking out for unionizing, stuff like that. But he had to get out of the county because they're after him. They're going to lynch him. So there's that piece. So because these children, Gloria and Robbie, are the offspring of Robert Stevens, they're kind of, paying for the sins of the father, so to speak. You guys, all I could say is if you like historical fiction, and it's only historical fiction because of the time period that's being discussed. You're not getting a full-on history lesson per se. You're just in that era, and you're following these children and these black people and what they gone through during that time period. All I could say is it was a heartwarming, heartbreaking, horrifying story. Well worth the read. Beautifully written, and I mean beautifully written. Her prose is just spot on. It was beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. But ugly at the same time because of the nature of the book. Fantastic. Highly, highly recommend. This is a 5-star, hands down 5-star read for me. And that's The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. All right, let's talk about the next book. Shocker. I read a physical book and not happy about it. Of all books to choose, I chose it because it's a rather small book. It's just over 200 pages. And I thought, all right, I can kick this out. I didn't DNF it because it's the first physical book I've picked up in years. And I mean years. I don't remember how long ago the last time I read a physical book in my hand, because I went from physical books to a Kindle. Then I stopped reading altogether because life got busy, and then I found out about this Audible thing. I was, oh my God, you could listen to books. So that's what I've been doing. But I have picked up some books and wanted to see about trying to intermingle them. The Sandwich by Catherine Newman. Not for me. Just not for me. Basically, I'm going to read you the synopsis of the book, okay? And then I'm going to discuss why it spoke to me and what I thought about it. For the past 2 decades, Rocky has looked forward to her family's yearly escape to Cape Cod. Their humble beach town rental has been the site of sweet memories, sunny days, great meals, and messes of all kinds, emotional, marital, and thanks to the cottage's ancient plumbing septic too. This year's vacation, with Rocky sandwiched between her half-grown kids and fully aging parents, promises to be as delightful as summers past, except perhaps for Rocky's hormonal bouts of rage and melancholy. Hello, menopause. Her body is changing, her life is too. And then a change of events sends Rocky into the past, reliving both the tenderness and sorrow of a handful of long ago summers. It's one precious week. Everything is in balance. Everything is in flux. And when Rocky comes face to face with her family's history and future, she is forced to accept that she can no longer hide her secrets from the people she loves. All right. I thought menopause. I think she's 54. Did I say she was 54? Somewhere it comes in there. She's 54. 1 star. Okay, it would have been a DNF, except this is the first book I've picked up in like 20 years, and I said I had to finish it because, whatever, I haven't read a book in so long in my hands. I couldn't relate to this at all. I don't want to get into politics per se. This author, this character is way too liberal for me. Yeah. I guess, yeah. Very liberal. The way she speaks in front of her kids, it's like they're friends. I don't have that dynamic with my children. I didn't have that dynamic with my mother. I mean, don't get me wrong. My daughter, who's now an adult, a full-grown woman with children of her own, we talk all the time and, things like that. But I don't talk about my sex life, and she don't talk about hers. I don't want to hear it. And she doesn't want to hear what I have to say either. I don't like that. It's like oversharing everything with your children. And there was something that happened to Rocky many years ago that she shares with her daughter. And I'm like, never. No. So this family dynamic where they're all friends, sitting around having drinks, and I couldn't relate to any of these people. Even her elderly parents, I couldn't relate to. They were a little too liberal for me. I just can't. I'm not a liberal woman. I'm not a feminist by any means. Shoot me. I'm not, if I was raised in the 60s, I wouldn't have been burning my bra. Yeah. That's fine if you are. I love you just the same, but I'm not. And this book here, Sandwich, was not for me. Yeah. I thought I was going to get a tale about, somebody I could relate to, because face it, guys, if you're not there yet, or if you're going through it now, or if you're a man watching this, menopause is a big thing to a woman. It's, and I thought I'd be able to relate to the craziness that goes on in your head and your body and all these things, and, it would be funny and humorous. And although the author tried to be funny, no, wasn't. Yeah. So that's The Sandwich by Catherine Newman. Should have been a DNF, so I'm giving it 1 star. So there you go. All right. I spent a lot of time talking about these 3 books, and we're going to go ahead and move on to the next book now. Okay, I am so excited to talk about this next book. It is Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. You know what? First of all, I'm loving this author. So far, the books that I've read by her, her twists and surprises are like amazing. I love when a book takes a turn that I'm like, stop and say, what? And I did that today. I was sitting here, I'm listening to it, and it was toward the end of the book. But there was like little things throughout this book that were just kind of like mind twisting, And so got to this one part towards the end, and I was stopped, and I was like, what? Blew me away. Anyway, loving this book. So this book is about, it's like about 3 different women, 4 kind of. And they're all interconnected throughout the story. We've got Precious, who's a young 18-year-old girl. Chloe, she is like a counselor, psychologist, and she's in her mid-50s, I believe. And we've got Precious's mother, Frankie, and Edith, who is Chloe's mom, and she's in a nursing home. And Precious works, I don't know if it's a nursing home. They don't really call it a nursing home. It's kind of like an elderly living facility. And Chloe works there. Not Chloe. Precious works there. Yeah. Twisted. The book starts out right in the beginning. You're hooked in with the actual hook. The situation happens. A mom is in a supermarket pushing her baby, and she's thinking in her head on how kind of like, she don't like this baby, doesn't want this baby, and her life is like just sucks and all the things, right? And anyway, she turns around and the baby's not there in the buggy anymore. You guys, so the whole book, you're trying to figure out from the beginning of the story, who is the mom and who is this baby, and what do all these 4 people have to do with it. And at certain points in the book, I felt like, oh, yeah, I know what happened here. I see this, blah, blah, blah. And then I get to the end, and it was like, what just happened? What just happened? And I had to really stop and think about it, going back through the timelines. And yeah, I enjoyed this book so very much. It was just a really good suspense type mystery thriller sort of thing. And there is some murder involved here too. So yeah, it was a little bit of everything. I would say this book checked off all my boxes, and I'm giving it 4.5 stars. Why am I not giving it 5? I'm trying to, not be so generous with the 5 stars, because to me, 5-star reads have to be just exceptional in every way, shape, or form. The characters have to be written to perfection, the atmosphere to perfection, the prose, the plot, the story, all the things. And this was like I said, 4.5 stars. Hey, that's nothing to sneeze at. But I'm taking off that half star just because, I don't know why. Because I just didn't feel it was a 5-star read. But to me, 4.5 stars is close enough. I freaking loved this story. And it was great. It was a page turner. I'm going to go with like a medium pace. It wasn't like super fast. But it kept going. And that suspense didn't stop through the whole book. It was just kind of like every so many chapters, or even chapter to chapter, there was a change. And it was like, oh, what? You know, you were constantly questioning, like, what is going on? What did this person? What if it's this? I love the book. Let me know. Have any of you read the book? Have you read Alice Feeney? What is your thoughts on her as an author? She is become one of my top favorites in my, when I'm choosing a book. I plan to go back and read more of her things because, yeah, I'm really loving her books. They have not let me down yet. I've read Beautiful Ugly, Rock, Paper, Scissors, this one. I feel like there was one more, but maybe there wasn't. And I'm going to go back and put all her novels on my list to be read. So, yeah. Let me know if you've read Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney, or if it's something it sounds like you may pick up based on what I had to say about it. All right. I'm going to go on and move on to the next one now. Okay, let's wrap up this month's reading with the next 2 books, and one of them is a physical book. Yep, I read another physical book. Starting out with like smaller books and then working my way into larger books, but I'm getting the hang of trying to incorporate more time reading physical books and a little less audio. Well, there's still a lot of audio, but I can only do so much. Anyway, this book is A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. Okay, so in this book, we are following Sam, and she is heading back home to North Carolina for a short break from work to stay with her mom. And when she gets there, her mother's not quite right. She's not her usual self. Like, her mother's usually very upbeat and funny and lively. And she finds that her mom is more like jumpy and nervous and like overly polite. And something's not right with mom. And she doesn't know what it is. Now, she thought, now this was her grandmother's house first, and grandma passed away and mom has, taken over. And one of the things she notices in the house is everything's painted like off-white. The house is very sterile. It lacks the character that it used to have when, her mother had painted it all different bright colors, and it was just very fun and had personality. And she doesn't know why her mother has gone and painted everything white and took all the pictures down. And it's just different. And her mother's acting weird. So as Sam starts to dig a little deeper, she starts to uncover like Southern Gothic family secrets that involve like magic and ghosts. And it gets a little weird. So all in all, it was a good book. I enjoyed it. It was funny, weird, spooky, a little creepy. I guess, now mind you, the genre I have always read for as long as I can remember has always been thriller types and suspense type stories, even police procedural books, and just straight up like fiction, character fiction. Back in the day, I did a lot of the romance novels and stuff like that, but I never really delved into horror or ghosts and things like that. And now I've started to dabble in it a little bit. And I'm not sure it's for me. I don't think it's a genre for me. All in all, I'm going to give the book 4 stars because it was well written. I love the character that she wrote for Sam. She was funny, like tongue in cheek, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the lightheartedness of the character and the writing itself. I just have a hard time getting used to the silliness of horror or ghosts and stuff. Maybe I just haven't come across the right one yet. I'm still gonna dabble in it here and there, definitely, for sure. I just don't think I've come across the right one yet. But all in all, like I said, I am going to give it 4 stars. It was a fun read. It was light. And I have to say, there was the one point the book, it did get a bit creepy, and I was like, oh, it was creepy. It did give me a little bit of the creeps. So that's a good thing, right? If that's what the book is supposed to do. Anyway, so that is A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. Good book. Now, the last one that I read. Just finished it tonight, and I was busy doing other things. And while I was listening to it. And I could not wait to get on here and talk about it, even though I can't really tell all. I freaking loved this book. This one did it for me. This book actually was recommended to me by Melissa Johnson Haight, and she had said that her daughter had told her to read it. I don't know if Melissa's even read it yet. Melissa, if you're watching, let me know if you've even read the book. Her daughter had suggested this book to her and said, "Oh my, you'll never guess the book." Okay. The book is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. You guys, if you want a psychological thriller that is twisty, mind games and secrets, this is the book for you. This book had an ending that I never saw coming. And as I was listening to it, doing my thing, I stopped and I'm like, what just happened? I never saw coming. Never saw coming. This book is good. This book is good. In fact, it's a Netflix show, and it's funny because it's been on my watch list since it came onto Netflix. I have a watch list on Netflix a mile long because I don't watch much TV. So I have tons and tons of stuff in that watch list, and this is one of them, and it's Behind Her Eyes. Now, the story deals 3 people, Louise, David, and Adele. So one night, now Louise is a single mom. Her life, she's kind of in a rut. And she's divorced and all the things. And one night in a bar, she meets a stranger and they hit it off and they share a magical kiss that just, lit her fire. And she was feeling very positive about it and oh my God, I think I really finally met a great guy. Then Monday morning rolls around and she goes to work. And when she gets to work, she finds out that her new boss, David, is the man from the bar. And he's also married to Adele. Okay, so the story moves on. She's mortified. Oh my God, my boss is the man I made out with in the bar over the weekend. And through the story, her and Adele, his wife, they become friends. And Louise soon starts to find out things going on behind the scenes, and she becomes very intertwined with Adele and David. Now, David is a psychiatrist, and it ends up turning into an affair. And all the while the affair is going on, she's still friends with the wife. He doesn't know that she's become friends with his wife. You guys, this book checked all my boxes. I was just blown away. I thought I had the whole book figured out, because as you're listening to the story or reading the story, you kind of know what's going on as you're reading it, until you get to the end and you're like, shut the front door. This was fantastic. Now, I almost gave it 4.5 stars because it is a bit of a slower paced book. And then when I thought about it and reflected on that number, I thought, no. I was taking off a half a star for, these being a little slower. And then I thought, no, it needed that. It needed all that storytelling in little bits and pieces going on, because that all came together in the end. 5-star, hands down, fantastic book. Fantastic. So I'm so excited about this book. Look, it's got a smile on my face. When I finished it, I was just like, oh my God, I want to talk to somebody about this book. Okay, so let me know. Has anybody read Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough? Let me know. Does it sound like something you might pick up and read? And then we could chat about it? Let me know. I love this book, and I want to keep talking about it. I need to find like a book forum where you could talk about books with people. Just your excitement over a book. Anyway, that's my monthly wrap up for the month of June. And yeah, it was a pretty good month. Pretty decent month. I'm pleased with it. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all the time you take to watch my craziness on video, my absent-mindedness, my lapse of memory, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you very, very much. So please comment, like, and subscribe. Helps my channel grow, and you all have a great day, great week, great night, weekend, whenever you happen to be watching, and we will chat again real soon. Bye-bye.